Quick show of hands. Who's ever heard yes and later realized it meant, I'm not sure? It's 2005, and I've started teaching English in Japan. One of my students, Kenji, is a middle-aged businessman. Quiet, polite, always in a gray suit. He's studying for an English test that opens better job opportunities overseas. Today, I'm teaching multiple choice strategy. The key point? When in doubt, choose C. There's no penalty for guessing, so don't leave anything blank. We practice this again and again. And I ask Kenji, do you understand? He nods and says, yes. Perfect. Kenji starts the final practice test. When he hands it back, I freeze. Several questions are left blank. Kenji, I ask, why didn't you answer them? When in doubt, choose C. He stares at me, nervous. I push. You said you understood. Why didn't you ask? He stays silent. And my frustration boils over. Just choose something, I shout, jabbing my finger at the paper. Kenji quickly circles answers, and I leave in frustration. In the teacher's lounge, I vent, how could he miss the whole point and not say anything? A colleague looks at me and says gently, John, he's Japanese, and you're his teacher. He wouldn't disrespect you by saying he didn't understand. That would imply your instructions were bad. Oh. Kenji didn't fail the lesson. It was me. I had failed to understand his context. And the part that still stings is this. After that day, Kenji never came back to my class. I keep thinking about how much harm I caused with one single misread. I lost his questions, his perspective, his voice in that room. I never got to say, I'm sorry I put you in that position, or ask, what would have helped you to feel safe to say you were confused? For years, I treated a lack of comprehension as a language problem. I'd just say it again, louder, with more words, which, as any teacher will tell you, is the scientific method for, I have no idea what else to try. After Kenji stopped coming, I did what a lot of us do when we realize we've hurt someone without meaning to. I searched for an explanation. I started reading about how classrooms operate in Japan, and what I learned changed how I hear silence. I learned that in many Japanese classrooms, silence or gentle agreement can be a way of preserving harmony in relationships. Now, I'm going to give you 8 seconds of silence. No phones, just notice what your brain starts doing with it. Calm for some, awkward for others. And that's already your cultural lens at work. In many English classrooms in Japan, less than 1% of talk time is student-initiated. And over 21% of class time can be complete silence. And here's the contrast. For many Japanese students, an 8-second pause equals respectful thinking time. However, many Western teachers interpret 4 seconds as disengagement. In that context, silence or a gentle yes can mean, I respect you and I don't want to embarrass you, even though I'm confused. All that time, I'd been listening through one cultural lens, the one I grew up with in Canada that says yes means I understood what you said or I'm willing to try. In Kenji's lens, that word carried a different meaning. Up until that point, I thought teaching meant standing in front of the class and getting everyone to follow my lead. I saw how some people nodded and assumed everything was working. After that moment with Kenji, I changed my approach. I stopped asking, do you understand? And started asking, can you explain it back to me in your own words? I thought to myself, if I grew up in their culture, what would this moment feel like? The change wasn't dramatic, But the atmosphere slowly shifted and more questions and voices started coming in. That moment with Kenji made me realize this. We don't just speak across cultural gaps. We listen across them. Say this with me. We listen across cultural gaps. We listen across cultural gaps. Yeah. That sentence changes what we notice. In campuses like this one, we're surrounded by unwritten rules and classrooms, labs, and residences. Each of us carries our own cultural lens that filters what we notice and changes how we perceive the behaviors of others. In a classic study, American and Chinese participants watched the same video of a school of fish and told strikingly different stories. They zoomed in on one fish that was moving a little differently. The American participants were 78% more likely to explain it in individualistic terms like, that fish is a leader, or it's probably more independent. The Chinese participants were 68% more likely to explain it in collectivist terms like, maybe the group is pushing it forward, or the others are chasing it. Same fish, different stories. And that's the point. The behavior didn't change. The meaning we assigned to it did. Poor fish. All it wanted was a quiet swim, and it became a psychology example. In many Western-influenced universities, students are praised for speaking up and challenging ideas, and professors notice the ones who raise their hands in debate. However, some students come from cultures where respect means listening first. Speaking without an invitation feels rude, and challenging a professor can feel risky. In that context, silence can be misinterpreted as disengagement. Now, I want you to turn to someone near you. 7 seconds each, so 14 total. Finish this sentence. When someone goes quiet, I usually assume. Go. Raise your hand if you notice something similar to your answer on this slide. If you see your answer reflected up here, you're not alone. Your brain is trying to make sense of a situation where it has almost no information. Now you can see how quickly our minds write stories. On campus, this can influence who gets called on, who gets mentored, and who gets seen. And after graduation, the same instinct can influence who gets hired, who gets promoted, and who eventually stops trying. Miguel came to Canada from Mexico with a master's degree, a background in finance, and a past life as the CEO of his own company. He wasn't starting from zero. He was rebuilding. At his new workplace, a supervisory position opened up. Miguel knew this was a great opportunity, and he fit the requirements perfectly. So he did what he thought respectful professionals do. He put his head down, he worked hard, he delivered results. He trusted that when the time was right, his manager would tap him on the shoulder and offer him the position. Only the offer went to someone with less experience and more visibility. Miguel was disappointed, but he thought, okay, next time. So when the next opportunity came, he did it again. Head down, steady work, no spotlight seeking, just results. And it happened again. Someone louder with less experience got chosen. By this time, Miguel wasn't just disappointed, he was confused. Because in his rule book, the message was clear. If I do excellent work, my manager will notice. So he finally did the thing that felt risky. He went into his supervisor's office and said, yeah, I thought I would have been a great fit for these roles. Why didn't you put my name up? His supervisor was stunned. Oh, I didn't know you were interested. Actually, I thought you would have been perfect, but you didn't say anything. And there it is. Two perfectly reasonable people standing on two different sets of unwritten rules. In Canada, so much opportunity flows through invisible channels. Studies estimate that 70 to 85% of jobs in Canada are filled through informal networks instead of public postings. And inside organizations, 78% of promotions go to employees who are recognized beyond their immediate teams. If you were taught that humility equals professionalism, this system has a quiet trap in it. You can be brilliant, reliable, and ready and still miss out simply because you didn't speak up. Only Miguel didn't know that because he came from a business culture where hierarchy is strong and self-advocacy can land as arrogance. Like much of Latin America, Asia, and Africa, you wait to be invited before you speak. So Miguel worked hard. He did what he thought was right, and he missed out twice. And when this happens at scale, it's not just a personal disappointment, it's a national leak. One study estimates the total cost of immigrant overqualification and underused skill in Canada at $11.4 billion a year. And over time, 1 in 5 immigrants leaves Canada within 25 years. Sometimes the loss isn't dramatic. It can just be a talented individual deciding, maybe I'm not wanted here. Miguel eventually moved on. And the company lost a talented leader they didn't realize they were losing. That's what happens when we bring people from many cultures into one campus, one workplace, one community, and then we only listen through our own cultural lens. So what do we do with that? Listening across cultures goes beyond words. It requires understanding the meaning behind the words and to recognize the different forms of respect, comfort, and belonging. I keep thinking back to that moment with Kenji. I wonder how things would have gone if I had had a way to pause and reset my assumptions. Now, I use a simple tool. I like to think of it as LEAP. I wish I'd had LEAP that day with Kenji when my frustration took over. And I wish Miguel's supervisor had something like it too, because Miguel needed the rules made visible and a way into a conversation that felt safe. I like to think of LEAP as a simple reset. L stands for let go of assumptions. When something feels off, notice the story your mind is telling you and ask, what else could be true? In the case of Miguel, what else could be true could be something like, maybe silence isn't a lack of ambition. Maybe it's a different form of respect. Let's rehearse that. Think of a recent reply you got that felt off, a text, a quick sure. In your mind, ask, what else could be true? There may be more context than we realize. E stands for engage with curiosity. In a seminar or group discussion, instead of saying, why are you so quiet? You could say, I notice you like to take time before you answer. How do you prefer to share your ideas? A manager's version is simple. I want to support your growth here. How do you like to talk about advancement and what feels uncomfortable? A stands for assess possibilities. Don't base your judgment on one single moment. Instead, notice how someone shows up in groups, in writing, and one-on-one, and look for patterns before you decide what someone can or can't do. Miguel showed leadership potential in judgment, reliability, and results long before he ever spoke up. If we only judge leadership by volume, we miss it. P stands for perform with insight. In the case of my students, I stopped asking, do you understand, and started asking, can you explain it back? As for Miguel's supervisor, perform could be naming the hidden criteria out loud. If you want to be considered, tell me. If that feels awkward, we'll build a way that works for you. LEAP doesn't require you to know every single culture on campus or in the workplace. It's a method where you can notice when your cultural lens is telling you one story and consider when another story might be true. It's a simple way to shift from quick judgment to thoughtful adjustment. And when teams and communities adopt these habits, psychological safety grows. People feel safer to ask questions, to admit when they don't understand, to share ideas that aren't fully formed. So what might this look like on the classrooms, residences, and communities beyond these walls? Some of you are professors, instructors, or staff. You set the tone of a classroom or office. Some of you are student leaders, roommates, or teammates, the first person someone turns to when they feel like an outsider. Many of you are members of communities that touch this campus. Over the next few weeks, notice if you feel that flash of judgment like I did with Kenji. When that happens, take one small leap. Let go of that first assumption. Engage with one curious question. Assess a few possibilities for clarity. Perform one action to build connection. Choose one moment where you'll try this. One classroom, one conversation. Just one. For me, Kenji is a quiet note of regret and gratitude. Regret, because I didn't know how to listen to him in time. Gratitude, because his silence forced me to consider my own cultural lens. Somewhere on this campus or in your communities, there is another Kenji. And somewhere in the workforce, there is another Miguel. And if we misread them, we all pay for it. So here's how I want to bring that phrase back, the one that started this whole journey. When in doubt, choose C. Not C for a lucky guess. C for curiosity. C for clarity. C for connection. My hope is that when you encounter your Kenji or Miguel, you'll remember LEAP. And in that moment of uncertainty, you'll choose C. Thank you.